Welcome to the Workplace Wellbeing Essential Series. I'm Mari Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this expert interview where we explore topics that impact employee well-being. My guest today is Tom Ciccotti. Tom is the co-founder and executive vice president of Shortlister. Shortlister is a technology platform and team of subject matter experts used by the nation's top employers and benefit consultants to help them identify their ideal vendor match for products and services in the wellness and HR technology space. Think eHarmony or Match.com for finding vendors in these markets. So Tom, I'm very excited to have you join me today.
I'm happy to be here, Mari.
Great, thanks so much. So I understand from our conversations that you and the team at Shortlister have been doing some research around some of the buying preferences and some of the interests with regard not just only to technology, but how the technology is being used in well-being programs in corporations. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this research that you've been doing and who was it that you were surveying or researching with?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a study of 2017 data that we've compiled here in the early part of 2018. And what we've pulled together is the feedback from the wellness subject matter experts in many of the nation's top employee benefits consultants. So these are specifically the individuals that on a day-to-day basis are working with an employer to have them articulate, well, what are your key wants and needs? Who are the vendors in the market that can satisfy those? So typically working with an employer like yourself. So these are folks that are very, very familiar and adept at identifying the vendor options in the market and also understanding, as a product of that, the trends and what employers are and are not purchasing. So from a numbers perspective, we had 144 unique respondents. 59% of that came from top 10 consultants of U.S. business. We had 51 firms, I believe, uniquely responding to that, and we had 9 of the 10 largest in the country participated. As we looked at kind of group size, if you will, where they typically worked or what they serviced, it was almost a 50-50 split. So we had 49% of respondents typically working with an employer that's 5,000 lives or larger, and then 51% working with small to mid-sized businesses below that 5,000 life threshold.
Well, fabulous. It sounds like you've really gotten some great insights from people who really see a lot of different kinds of organizations and a lot of different types of needs. So it sounds like they were a perfect audience to be able to get some data from.
They absolutely were. Our partners are fantastic, and they were very open in their contributions to what they're seeing in space and objectively how the market's buying, and being able to not only hear their feedback and their opinions of this, but then complement that and objectively verify those trends via the data and opportunities we're seeing from an RFP standpoint go through the platform was really exciting.
Fabulous. Well, that's exciting. So, of course, I'm excited to hear what is it that your research revealed. Can you take me through sort of a high-level approach to what the research actually revealed?
Yeah, we went across a number of different things. So everything from what trends or innovations are they seeing in the workplace that they think is going to have the most impact on programming and employer participation and engagement of the populations, to what products are rising and falling in popularity. We did a little bit of trending in there. So just really around buyer preferences. What is an employer today evaluating, and post that evaluation, what are they actually selecting and moving forward with?
Fabulous. So what are some of these trends that you're seeing, and what did the research reveal?
Yeah. So we'll go through a couple different questions that we posed in the data that we saw there. The first exact question that we posed to them was, what trends or innovations in the market have you seen and believe will help improve the effectiveness of corporate well-being programs in the future? So everyone was able to give multiple responses to this. The number one response, with 64% of respondents, was a shift towards total well-being and a focus on engagement. So think about focusing on the culture and the environment. Moving beyond just physical wellness, your screenings only and your walking programs, to more holistically look at the individual, their mental well-being. And that's everything from mindfulness and resilience type programs to behavioral health type interventions, to looking at the managers in an organization. I know that recently you had a webinar with Dr. Sarah Johnson of ProChange, and she spoke on how to activate that manager population and the real catalyst they can be for getting folks involved and feeling as if their employer really cares about their overall well-being. So we're seeing this more holistic and progressive approach beyond what I would call traditional wellness programming, which was much more physically focused. It was biometrics only and so forth, to look at the entirety of the population and really just look at folks from a more human perspective.
It's a wonderful trend, and it's delightful to hear that while many of us have been made that transition from wellness to well-being over the past few years, that the research is indeed showing that as well. So good confirmation. Love it.
Yeah. So the second most prominent topic or response that we saw come through was the addition of point solutions. So when we say point solutions, we really mean a targeted intervention focused on a specific area. So it might be that financial wellness program where an employer has a high millennial population, and student loan repayment or student debt for those individuals is a key stressor, to where if an employer were to provide some type of benefit aimed exactly at that, because they know it would speak to their population, it would alleviate a key stressor that they deal with, that financial stability that they then have, this is something that makes them a more attractive employer. You see when mental well-being initiatives beyond just EAPs and EPs are doing some great work now and becoming a little bit more progressive with their technology and the scope of their offerings. But think mindfulness, think resilience, think meditation type programming to really targeted interventions around specific conditions. So even diabetes management programs for populations there, targeted solutions around sleep to improve the quality of sleep for individuals. As we look at this primary trend, 64% of respondents saying that, we're trying to look more holistically at the population here. The fact that the inclusion or addition of point solutions is number 2 makes perfect sense, because if I'm going to afford an array of resources for my population that speaks to them, I inherently need to add more items to the program overall that is going to be or allow the personalization down to those individual members.
Well, that's great, because we know that behavior change is so hard to do, and that by having some elements that are specifically focused around the most important areas for target populations, it's great to hear that there are some real emphasis being placed on some of those point solutions. That's great. Mm-hmm. What else is it telling you?
And rounding that out, there were two other topics very close to one another in terms of prevalence of being brought forward by the respondents. 25% said the growth of mobile-first solutions, and 21% said these agnostic hub platforms, to tie those together. So a little bit on each of those for you. The mobile-first solution, the interesting thing is that we all have these on us at all times. So part of the attraction there is access. Knowing that if I need to communicate the right thing to the right time to the right individual, a great way to reach them is with that smartphone. Secondary to that, and this is true of both the mobile devices or those mobile-first platforms that are becoming in higher demand, and these agnostic hub platforms, is I'm in a better position to more thoughtfully personalize the experience and what I communicate to you, either based on your preferences that you entered into the system at the onset of the program, other data sources I may have, from claims to biometric information to health risk assessment responses and everything in between, to really paint a thoughtful picture of who is this individual, what is going to be most relevant to Mari in this particular situation, and then not inundate you with messaging that is irrelevant. So that's the best way to turn someone off from the program and get them disengaged or desensitize them to the particular medium, is to inundate them with a lot of irrelevant content, and then you lose that access point and channel. Now, for the hub platforms, that experience can be a little bit more thoughtful, where the resources I see are what's presented to me. It's, again, customized to either preferences I've exhibited or the data that you have on me. From the employer perspective, it also has two other pretty unique benefits. One, can I one-stop shop? for lack of a better term, I want to be able to go out to market, do a thoughtful RFP and selection with my consultant, and ensure that I'm finding the best base provider that's going to have a very clean and intuitive user experience or user interface for my member. But if I then want to add a point solution in the future, financial wellness, diabetes management, mental well-being, or any of these others, many of the agnostic hub platforms in the market have done pre-vetting and have pre-established partners. So the ability to activate that when I'm ready as an employer is extremely attractive. Beyond that, I have 10,000 foot of view now from a reporting and data perspective to say, well, everything's tied together here in terms of dashboards for me. What are my folks utilizing? What aren't they? So I can more effectively decide what warrants continuing to have a budget allocated to it and a program that deserves them to stay versus, we're just not seeing the utilization of that program. Maybe that's something we can discontinue.
I am so excited to hear that there is such an emphasis being placed on two things. One is having access to the data. I happen to be one of those geeky data type people who loves having lots of data to be able to make decisions and to guide programs, but then also to be able to utilize that for the personalization element. I think the days of one size fits all wellness programs and well-being programs are really gone, and that these tools and technology are really making it much easier to be able to personalize programs.
100% agree.
Fabulous. That's great. Well, that's a good overview of the, sort of 4 key points that your research is revealing for us in terms of the impacting of the future success. So in terms of some of the data that your research has revealed, can you tell us a little bit more of a deep dive on what some of these trends are and how they'll help improve the effectiveness of corporate well-being programs in the future? But really, how are these relevant to the decisions that employers are making when they're designing programs? So take us through some of that.
Yeah, so we broke down the trending idea in 2 different ways. One, we want to do kind of a 1-year snapshot of, in this most previous year, in 2017 data, what was growing in demand, what was maybe declining in demand, and some of the movement away from particularly the program structures or resources. And then we did a multi-year analysis, year-over-year trending, to see what has continued to grow, or remained high interest, and what has maybe substantially made an about turn, as we'll show you in some of the data here. So focusing first on the 2017 snapshot, we asked the question directly, what are your clients doing more or less of than in previous years? Number one response, 84% doing more, was a shift to total well-being. So again, that more holistic view than just the focus on physical health. Not surprisingly, as we talked about before, 79% said more are adding point solutions to the offering to start to create something that's a little bit more holistic, and we'll have something that speaks to all the different members of my population. Number 3 was 73%, so in a close third, was the increase in the use of mobile first solutions. Again, we want to target that messaging, make sure folks are aware, and also personalize that. And then towards the bottom then was 63%, so still absolutely growing in demand, were these agnostic hub platforms to pull it all together. So you have this more holistic view beyond just basic programming or singular one-time events and then nothing for the next 11 months of the year, to how do I keep my population engaged throughout the entire 12 months of the year. And they do that through, one, affording them a broader array of resources, hopefully, which will speak to individual members of the population. But then you have to create a cohesive and thoughtful user experience, either via the mobile first solutions or the agnostic hub platforms, to direct the members to the resources that are most relevant and matter most to them. One of the biggest downtrends we saw was the implementation of outcomes-based programs. In 2017, 47% said they were doing less than they were in the previous year. Only 18% said they were doing it more. And then there's also the opting away from a carrier-based wellness solution to a third-party provider that really specializes in that particular area. So 48% were doing that less. and in previous years were utilizing a carrier less than they were, and only 15% were moving to carriers more than an outside third party, a vendor that specializes in these areas.
Excellent. Well, this is a really interesting way to be looking at, I love the way you're asking questions and you can see, where folks are doing more or less of things. And I really like this approach because it gives us a sense of kind of what's trending. I'm in some ways, encouraged to hear about some of the things that are trending up, and also at the same time that, outcomes-based programs are trending down, because I think folks found that was perhaps not the best approach from being able to manage program perspective. So great presentation on this data. And then how does this look over the long term? Because this isn't the first time you've done this report. Can you fill us in on how these trends appear over time?
Yeah, so we had a lot of these same questions posed in 15, 16, and 17. So what you're seeing on the screen here is kind of a multi-year progression of demand or increase in interest in these different areas. You see in 15, we didn't even ask the question about mobile first or native apps at that time, but it has grown the most year over year, 73% doing that more. As we start to look at the shift to total well-being, the addition of point solutions, the agnostic hub platforms, those have remained relatively flat, but I say that with they're certainly doing it more. They've just slightly downticked from previous years. So, for example, 90% in 2016 were shifting to a total focus on well-being or a more holistic view. In 17, that number, still very high at 84%, had dipped slightly. The only real area we saw pretty aggressive about face and reversal was the implementation of those outcomes-based or health contingent program designs. In 2015, 42% were doing that more than they had in the past. In 2016, only 29% were doing that more. You see almost a direct flip-flop as you look at the data on the screen here. And then in 2017, we only had 18% doing that more, with 47% doing it less than they had in the previous year. And, there are a couple influencing factors to that. One, the legal landscape around program designs and just being cautious there. I think the secondary aspect would be it makes sense when you're trying to inject more tools and resources to your program. Financial wellness resources, mental well-being resources, and so forth. An incentive design that focuses solely on biometrics doesn't convey the we care message of, here's why we've afforded you with all of these, this varying array of resources to find something that speaks to you. That incentive design, just based on biometrics, kind of flies in the face of the addition of new resources that may speak to other non-physically focused wellness areas. So that's fueling the downtrend as well.
Fascinating and really interesting to see how the trends have changed over the years. So great approach in being able to look at that comparison across multiple years. Well, Tom, this has been a fabulous high-level view of the trends and those aspects of innovations that are influencing program design and decision-making within well-being programs. If our audience wants to learn more about some of your research or the work that Shortlister is doing, where can they find you and that information?
Yeah, the best place to go and you can get a copy of the full study is www.myshortlister.com. Great blog section, video content, a number of different things, as well as the report there. Or feel free to email me directly at T as in Tom Ciccotti, Ciccotti, at myshortlister.com.
Great. Thank you. That's wonderful. So thanks so much for being here today, Tom. This was fascinating research. Delighted to learn from the work that you and your team are doing at Shortlister, and really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.